They're the unlikely legacy of a drug empire, a herd of hulking hippos roaming free in Colombia. The descendants of the exotic animals once kept by the notorious drug lord Pablo Escobar on his sprawling estate. But today, these hippos are no longer just a curiosity. They escaped, they multiplied, they reshaped ecosystems and threatened local populations in Colombia. Here's a fisherman in Colombia talking about his close encounter with a hippo.
Seeing these hippos is really tough. We were out there on Saturday, and the hippo stood up and swung its jaws wide. If it grabs you, it'll tear you apart. So you understand that this animal is very dangerous. We stopped fishing because we saw it.
Now the burgeoning hippo population is sparking a thorny debate about whether culling them would be the best solution for all concerned. But is killing them really the answer? Well, a self-styled environmentalist from India says it is not, and he's stepping in with a solution. His name is Anant Ambani, and he also happens to be the youngest son of India's richest man. This is him when he got married in 2024. Now, Ambani says he will take in the hippos, and he's offering them a new home at his private animal sanctuary called Vantara in India. Now, Vantara is already home to more than 150,000 animals, including many endangered species. But is this headline-grabbing idea also a serious conservation solution? Because moving so many hippos halfway across the world isn't like relocating a few zoo animals. It raises big, uncomfortable questions. Can one private zoo realistically accommodate such a large and growing population? What would it take to transport large, heavy animals across continents? And even if you could, should you? So the question that we're asking today is sending Escobar's cocaine hippos to India a bold conservation fix or just an expensive fantasy? Jan Pluhacek is a hippo expert, and he is here to help me answer that very question. Dr. Pluhacek is based in the Czech Republic, where he focuses on the conservation of both common and pygmy hippos. Now, that includes the European breeding program and field projects in West Africa. He's also the co-chair of the Hippo Specialist Group at the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Jan Pluhacek, thank you so much for joining me today. Can we start by talking about what kind of animals hippos are and why Colombia wants to get rid of these hippos that are roaming free there now?
The hippos are a wonderful species on our planet. There are two species living in Africa, and hippos in Colombia, that's a bit strange story because they been arrived there from North American zoos. Four animals came there at the beginning of 90s to Pablo Escobar private zoo. Later on, they escaped from his ranch and they bred very successfully. And currently, this small metapopulation involves more than 100 individuals.
OK, so they obviously like being in Colombia. They're thriving there. But Colombia is suggesting culling them. Now, if I understand correctly, hippo populations are classified as vulnerable. So would it actually be legal to kill these hippos?
Whether it would be legal or not, it's the question for Colombian government and laws. I'm not expert in this. We as IUCN SSC classified common hippopotamus as vulnerable because of decline of some populations in Central Africa and in Western Africa. So this classification reflects the population in the wild, not the feral population in Colombia.
Anant Ambani is the son of India's richest man. He has made the offer to take them in at his private zoo. Now, what he said, and I'm quoting here, they are living sentient beings, and if we have the ability to save them through a safe and humane solution, we have a responsibility to try. What do you think of Vambani's idea of transporting these hippos across continents? I mean, do you think this is a safe and humane solution?
It might be safe solution. I'm not sure if it's so human, because I think that these animals can suffer still by such a long transfer. Nevertheless, what's important to say is that from conservation perspective, this transfer would have any impact on wild populations. And for us, it would be more beneficial if the money or funding would be spent to protect the remaining populations of hippos in Africa than for transfer of these animals, which has no conservation value.
OK, so you're questioning the conservation value. But if we just talk about the logistics, because to imagine that so many hippos would be transported from one continent to another, I mean, just talk to us a little bit about the logistics of this. How would you go about organising something like this? And is this what has happened in other cases? I mean, is this normal for such large animals to be sort of transported across the world?
I think it's feasible. It's not a problem. A lot of European zoos are transferring rhinoceroses back to Africa, which is comparable. And so I wouldn't afraid of logistic. To me, it's a vasting of resources, which could be used much better for conservation, or, for example, for conservation breeding, because to transfer hippos from Colombia to one Indian zoo is not related to any conservation at all.
In terms of how these animals would potentially adapt, if, let's say, if they were transferred from Colombia to India, I mean, would they be able to adapt well to living in India?
I think so. Hippos are, in general, common hippopotamus is a very adaptable species for thousands of years. So I wouldn't see any problem with this. Indeed, in general, the adaptability is much better in young individuals than in older individuals, but doesn't matter. In general, hippos are quite adaptable.
OK, so they're a tough species. I just wanted to talk to you about Vantara, this private zoo. It's more than 14,000 square kilometres large. It's only 2 years old. There's been quite a lot of controversy about it. It's faced criticism. There have been allegations of unlawful animal acquisitions, unsuitable environmental conditions. What do you think? I mean, do you think this idea of a private zoo could be a place where these hippos could potentially thrive? And in general, I mean, do you see privately funded projects like this useful in conservation efforts, given that you're saying, you know, there isn't enough money for conservation efforts?
This is a bit difficult question because I have never been there, so I have no direct information about this facility.
Private zoos, you know, private zoos in general, what do you see their value as being?
The private zoos are very useful for conservation in general. We in the European Association of Zoos and Aquaria have, I think, even more than half private zoos. And these zoos work very well for conservation, either for conservation breeding of species we have here ex situ in the zoos, as well as for supporting real conservation projects in whole planet. So for me, it's not a question whether the zoo is owned by a private person or whether it's owned by public institution like municipality or government, doesn't matter. The question which is more important is whether this facility cooperate with other zoos, making some network, being involved in conservation breeding programs, supporting in situ projects, and so on. These are most important matters associated with the running of any zoo.
Jan, you've mentioned a couple of times that the amount of money that would potentially be spent on transporting these hippos in question from Colombia to India, that money could be better spent on conservation efforts. Tell us how you would like to see that money being spent.
We, as a hippo specialist group, endorse several projects. Currently, there are 8 projects across whole African continent for conservation and research of both hippo species. And we would be very happy if more people, more organizations would support projects, especially in Central Africa, in Democratic Congo, or in Western Africa, in several countries, especially in Côte d'Ivoire or Burkina Faso, for conservation of native hippo populations in these countries.
And tell us why hippo conservation is important.
In terms of pygmy hippo, it's extremely important because this species is really struggling for survival. It inhabits just 4 range countries, and the only safe population is in Côte d'Ivoire, maybe in one national park, in Thai National Park. So any conservation effort is highly needed in these countries. I'd like to emphasize that these countries are also very poor countries. And for common hippopotamus, the conservation effort should concentrate to remaining populations in Western Africa to survive, because common hippo is classified as engineer of ecosystem, because they keep the rivers without vegetation and so on, and they bring a lot of material from the land to the river. So they are also very important for fisheries and so on. Thus, it's important to protect these populations, to keep them safe. And what's also a problem, which is very rising, it's a hippo-human conflict. This conflict has causalities on both sides, and it's necessary to have a lot of projects to minimize this conflict.
I just wanted to pick up, Jan, on what you were saying about the fact that hippos are ecosystem engineers, because we hear a lot, don't we, about the hippos in Colombia, and they're destroying the environment there, and that they're aggressive, and that there are clashes with the local population. But what hippos can do when they are in the environment that they are supposed to be in is actually really valuable, isn't it?
You mean in Africa?
That's right. I mean, the ecosystem engineer aspect of how they are.
Yeah, they are very important for keeping organic material in the water and in taking a lot of minerals from the land via digestion to the water. So they are helping a lot to fishing industry, of course. On the other hand, there are a lot of conflicts between hippos and fishermen.
Mm-hmm. Ultimately, coming back to these hippos that we're talking about in Colombia, what do you think would be the best and the most humane solution for this herd of hippos in question?
In my opinion, the best solution would be to cull these individuals, to get them rid completely from Colombia. Because culling is also one of the very useful methods for conservation, especially when we are discussing problem of invasive species. This is the most effective method, and I think this is also a very human method because sometimes people think, for example, that they can separate sex of the animals, but then they can induce some frustration for the animals, because if you are living in one sex group for a whole life, it's not normal for many species.
Jan Pluhacek, co-chair of the Hippo Specialist Group at the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Thank you so much, Jan, for talking to us today.